Hey, it's Joey for Digital DJ Tips, and welcome to this 4-part training series on how I DJ with stems. I'll take you through my method for creating and performing what I call stem loops, which you can think of as bite-sized productions that you can quickly stitch together using loop packs. You assemble them in a digital audio workstation like Ableton Live, and then export them as a stem track for use in Traktor Pro 2. So in this first video, I'm going to introduce you to my concept of the stem loop and why you'd want to use stem loops while you're DJing. And towards the end, I'll do a quick demo so you can see how I DJ with stem loops. Let's get going.
If you're not familiar, Stems is a multi-track file format that works with Traktor Pro 2 and it lets you take control of up to 4 individual audio tracks called stems in a single music file. You can do stuff like change their volumes, mute or unmute them, and even add effects. You can have hands-on control of stems through native instruments controllers like the Traktor Control S8, S5, and S4, as well as modular controllers like the F1 and D2. Everyone writes music differently, so here's how I do it. I have a melody in mind, and then I fire up a digital audio workstation like Ableton Live, and then I add that melody in using a piano patch. I leave that as is, coming back to it later on when I've got much more time to really flesh out the production, which includes choosing sounds, programming drum parts, adding bass lines, effects, recording vocals if I want to add some vocals, mixing all these elements down, and then sending it off for mastering. Now, this is a time-consuming process, and I do enjoy it, but sometimes I just want to make a track really fast. Like if I get an idea for a song and I want to drop it at a gig that same evening. That's when I thought of the stem loop concept. The stem loop is a fun way to get dance music ideas from the studio to the dance floor in as little time as possible. And the way it does this is it streamlines the production process to the bare essentials. Now, arranging is part of music production, and arranging is the process of creating parts of the tune, like verses, choruses, build-ups and drops, and knowing the lengths of each of these parts. It creates a tension and drama and flow within your tune. I like to call these parts chunks, and my stem loop concept makes arranging fast and easy. Using stem loops, the arranging process is kept at a minimum because these chunks are all placed in a template that I created specifically for this purpose, which I call the stem loop map. And I'll be sharing it with you later on in the series so you can do it yourself. You then flesh out your song live during your DJ set by looping these chunks and mixing the stems in and out of each other. Now, it won't sound as polished as a full-on production that's been mixed and mastered, of course, but using stem loops is a fun way to perform with tracks that you put together using sample packs with a minimum of time commitment. And you can have as many of these as you want to sprinkle your sets with some live looping elements. It really makes good use of the stems format. So very briefly, here's how it works. You pick out a sample pack of a genre that you like, then you pick the drums, bass, synthesizer, and effect loops and samples that you want to use. Next, you fire up your DAW or digital audio workstation like Ableton Live. You open the stem loop map template, which I'll explain in the next video, film the tracks with loops and samples to create your chunks, and then you fill out the map. You then export these elements to the stem creator tool provided by Native Instruments, which will turn the individual tracks into a stem file. Lastly, you import them into your Traktor collection and add in your loop cues, which I'll explain in the third video of this series. It's not rocket science, but there's a bit of very basic production involved, so it's a cool way to get started producing, even if you don't have a music background. It's also a great way to familiarize yourself with the way that dance music is created.
Right, so now I'm going to show you how I DJ with stem loops. This is a track that I put together in under 10 minutes. That fast for a stem loop production, like I said, and I'm also going to be improvising, just having fun, messing around, and basically just showing you what you can do and what's possible when you DJ with stem loops during a live set.
Right, so I'm gonna do a quick demo of my stem loop concept. I'll show you how I DJ with a normal stems file, something that you can buy off of Beatport or Traxsource, and how I mix that into a stem loop that I created in under 10 minutes. So here we go. Play this track over here. This is a track called My Mind by The Cool Cats. Just a normal house / techno track. Really like it. And I'm gonna mix this into my stem loop track over here in deck B called Techno a little bit later on. So I'm gonna press this pad over here, which is a cue loop point that I've set. When you press a cue loop pad, it jumps to that cue position and it automatically engages a loop, so when you press play, you are now looping. Alright, cool. Now I'm slowly bringing up the volume of my stem loop track. Alright, cool. Now again, I've got my stem loop track going here on deck B, and I want it to keep on progressing as we approach the break here in our track on deck A. So I'm going to disengage the loop here on deck B. I'm thinking it'd be cool if I could loop this break chunk here in deck A while I mix in some elements from our stem loop on deck B. So I engage that loop, and then I'm gonna bring in the low end over here in deck B. Put in a little bit more bass, there we go. And then I'll press my cue loop pad here to keep deck B looping. Bam! There you go. Now I'm mixing deck A, which has our regular stem track, with deck B, which has our stem loop. And both are looping. Now I'm gonna lower the drums and synth tracks over here in deck A, leaving only the bass and the vocals. There you go. Awesome. Now I want to move to the next chunk in my stem loop, so I'm going to disengage the loop here in deck B, which will take me to the breakdown. Okay, now I'm going to kill the volume of the bass stem here in deck A. Now I'm going to engage a loop over here in deck B by using the loop encoder when the drop comes, and then I'll cut out the vocal and bring back the bass stem over here in deck A. Okay, so I did three things there at the same time. First, I engaged a loop in deck B using the loop encoder, and then I cut out the vocal stem and brought back the bass stem over here in deck A. So that's just a quick and basic example of how you can improvise with stem loops during your DJ sets. Okay, now I want to bring back the vocal from deck A and cut the vocal from deck B. All I gotta do is move the stem deck faders for both decks. Alright, there you go. So again, just a fun way to improvise with stem loops. You can use them to mix in and out of other tracks. And again, this is something that you put together yourself, which could be a way for you to add your own signature touch during your DJ sets. Okay, cool. Now let's say I want to mix out of my stem loop. So I'm going to disengage the loop in deck B by pressing this encoder. Alright, and then I want to bring back the drum stem from deck A, which is this fader over here. So first, I'm going to engage a loop here in deck B, which will serve as the outro for the loop stem. There you go. Now that's looping. Now I'll turn my attention to deck A and I'll slowly bring up the drum stem fader. Little by little. I'll also bring up the synth stem just for a little bit of variation. I'm going to disengage the loop, and then I'll apply a filter over here on deck B and mix out of it. There you go. So I did a couple of things there. First, I brought back the synth and drum stems over on deck A, and then I disengaged the loop, which would allow the song to progress as it normally would. And then in deck B, I applied a filter and mixed out of it by lowering its volume. So you get the idea. It's something super quick, super easy to do, something fun to improvise with. Those are the live performance dynamics that using stem loops can give you. And of course, I'll explain how to create and how to perform with them in the videos to come later on, so you can make your own stem loops.
So that's it for this first video on how I DJ with stems. In the next one, we're going to build your own stem loop using the stem loop map. So I've got the full training article to this video over at the Digital DJ Tips website. The link is in the description box below. Please hit the thumbs up icon if you like this video and hit the subscribe button if you are not a subscriber yet. My name is Joey. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.